In the early part of the 19th century, in London, a young journalist appeared on the scene by the name of William Hazlitt, and amongst his first published writings was a piece in defence of actors and acting. A lot of us, if we have any frame of reference at all when it comes to Georgian-era actors, will generally first think of those characters in Blackadder III. But I first encountered this piece out of the mouth of Richard Griffiths when we first arrived at the National Theatre on The History Boys. It is cut down because it would be extremely long if it was the whole thing, but this is the edit that I've put together for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Players are the abstracts and brief chronicles of the time, the motley representatives of human nature. They are the only honest hypocrites. Their life is a voluntary dream, a studied madness. The height of their ambition is to be beside themselves. Today kings, tomorrow beggars, it is only when they are themselves that they are nothing. Made up of mimic laughter and tears, passing from the extremes of joy or woe at the prompter's call, they wear the livery of other men's fortunes. Their very thoughts are not their own. They are, as it were, train-bearers in the pageant of life, and hold a glass up to humanity frailer than itself. We see ourselves at second hand in them. They show us all that we are, all that we wish to be, and all that we dread to be. The stage is an epitome, a bettered likeness of the world, with the dull part left out, and indeed, with this omission, it is nearly big enough to hold all the rest. What brings the resemblance nearer is that as they imitate us, we in our turn imitate them. How many fine gentlemen do we owe to the stage? How many romantic lovers are mere Romeos in masquerade? How many soft bosoms have heaved with Juliet's sighs? They teach us when to laugh and when to weep, when to love and when to hate, upon principle and with a good grace. Wherever there is a playhouse, the world will go on not amiss. The stage is the best teacher of morals, for it is the truest and most intelligible picture of life. It regulates the passions by giving a loose to the imagination. It points out the selfish and depraved to our detestation, the amiable and generous to our admiration. And if it clothes the more seductive vices with the borrowed graces of wit and fancy, even those graces operate as a diversion to the coarser poison of experience and bad example. To show how little we agree with the common declamations against the immoral tendency of the stage on this score, we will hazard a conjecture that the acting of the Beggar's Opera a certain number of nights every year since it was first brought out has done more towards putting down the practice of highway robbery than all the gibbets that ever were erected. A person after seeing this piece is too deeply imbued with a sense of humanity, is in too good humour with himself and the rest of the world, to set about cutting throats or rifling pockets. A good company of comedians, a theatre royal, judiciously managed, is your true Herald's College, the only antiquarian society that is worth a rush. It is for this reason that there is such an air of romance about players. We do not know whether to look upon this accomplished actor as Pierre or King John, or Coriolanus, or Cato, or Leontes. But we see in him a stately hieroglyphic of humanity, a living monument of departed greatness, a sombre comment on the rise and fall of kings. One of the most affecting things we know is to see a favourite actor take leave of the stage. We were present not long ago when Mr. Bannister quitted it. We do not wonder that his feelings were overpowered on the occasion. Ours were nearly so too. We remembered him in the first heyday of our youthful spirits, and we parted with him as we should with one of our oldest and best friends. The most pleasant feature in the profession of a player, and which indeed is peculiar to it, is that we contract a personal intimacy with them. We greet them on the stage, we like to meet them in the streets. The very gaiety and popularity, however, which surround the life of a favourite performer make the retiring from it a very serious business. It glances a mortifying reflection on the shortness of human life and the vanity of human pleasures. Something reminds us that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. It has been considered as a misfortune that they leave no record behind them except that of vague rumour, and that the genius of a great actor perishes with him, leaving the world no copy. This is a misfortune, or at least an unpleasant circumstance, to actors, but it is, perhaps, an advantage to the stage. It leaves an opening to originality. The stage is always beginning anew. The candidates for theatrical reputation are always setting out afresh, unencumbered by the affectation of the faults or excellences of their predecessors. We have not, neither do we want, 2 Shakespeares, 2 Miltons, 2 Raphaels, any more than we require 2 suns in the same sphere. Even Miss O'Neill stands a little in the way of our recollections of Mrs. Siddons. But Mr. Kean is an excellent substitute for the memory of Garrick, whom we never saw. We have seen what a ferment has been excited among our living artists by the exhibition of the works of the old masters at the British Gallery. What would the actors say to it if, by any spell or power of necromancy, all the celebrated actors for the last 100 years could be made to appear again on the boards of Covent Garden and Drury Lane for the last time in all their most brilliant parts? We should certainly be there. We should buy a ticket for the season. We should enjoy our 100 days again. We should not miss a single night. We would not, for a great deal, be absent from Betterton's Hamlet, or his Brutus, or from Booth's Cato, as it was first acted to the contending applause of Whigs and Tories. We should then know exactly whether Garrick was, upon the whole, so great an actor as the world have made him out. Many people have a strong desire to pry into the secrets of futurity. For our own parts, we should be satisfied if we had the power to recall the dead and live the past over again as often as we pleased. Players, after all, have little reason to complain of their hard-earned, short-lived popularity. One thunder of applause from pit, boxes, and gallery is equal to a whole immortality of posthumous fame. And when we hear an actor whose modesty is equal to his merit declare that he would like to see a dog wag his tail in approbation, what must he feel when he sets the whole house in a roar? Actors have been accused, as a profession, of being extravagant and dissipated. While they're said to be so as a piece of common cant, they are likely to continue so. But there is a sentence in Shakespeare which should be stuck as a label in the mouths of our beadles and whippers-in of morality. The web of our life is of a mingled yarn, good and ill together. Our virtues would be proud if our faults whipped them not, and our vices would despair if they were not cherished by our virtues. With respect to the extravagance of actors as a traditional character, it is not to be wondered at. They live from hand to mouth. They plunge from want into luxury. They have no means of making money breed, and all professions that do not live by turning money into money, or have not a certainty of accumulating it in the end by parsimony, spend it. Uncertain of the future, they make sure of the present moment. This is not unwise. Chilled with poverty, steeped in contempt, they sometimes pass into the sunshine of fortune and are lifted to the very pinnacle of public favour, yet, even there, cannot calculate on the continuance of success, but are, like the giddy sailor on the mast, ready with every blast to topple down into the fatal bowels of the deep. Again, with respect to the habit of convivial indulgence, an actor, to be a good one, must have a great spirit of enjoyment in himself, strong impulses, strong passions, and a strong sense of pleasure, for it is his business to imitate the passions and to communicate pleasure to others. The neglected actor may be excused if he drinks oblivion of his disappointments. The successful one if he quaffs the applause of the world and enjoys the friendship of those who are the friends of the favourites of fortune in draughts of nectar. There is no path so steep as that of fame, no labour so hard as the pursuit of excellence. If there is any tendency to dissipation in the profession of a player, it is owing to the prejudices entertained against them, to that spirit of bigotry which in a neighbouring country would deny actors Christian burial after their death, and to that cant of criticism which in our own slurs over their characters while living with a half-witted jest. A London engagement is generally considered by actors as a consummation devoutly to be wished, as the great prize in the lottery of their professional life. But this appears to us, who are not in the secret, to be rather the prose termination of their adventurous career. It is the provincial commencement that is the poetical and truly enviable part of it. After that they have comparatively little to hope or fear. The wine of life is drunk, and but the lees remain. In London they become gentlemen and the king's servants, but it is the romantic mixture of the hero and the vagabond that constitutes the essence of the player's life. It is the transition from their real to their assumed characters, from the contempt of the world to the applause of the multitude, that gives its zest to the latter, and raises them as much above common humanity at night as in the daytime they are depressed below it. Hurried from fierce extremes, by contrast made more fierce, it is rags on a flock bed which give their splendour to a plume of feathers and a throne. We should suppose that if the most admired actor on the London stage were brought to confession on this point, he would acknowledge that all the applause he had received from brilliant and overflowing audiences was nothing to the light-headed intoxication of unlooked-for success in a barn